Amid a mysterious fire in a house on December 24, 1945, 5 children vanish, disappearing in a mysterious and bizarre way. And the parents, the father and mother of these children, never see their children again until the day they die. Hey there, my shipwrecked friends of this channel. Welcome to another long video on this channel. Today we're going to talk about this mysterious case of 5 children who disappeared. And to this day, no one can explain what happened. So, come with me. The Solder family lived in a 2-story house in the rural area of Fayetteville in the United States. The Solder family was a middle-class family and they were Italian immigrants. Many people opposed the father's political views because he was an Italian immigrant, so he argued with several people about that.
And even more so because they were an Italian family, a traditional family, a very strict family. They ended up having many arguments with other people.
They were always getting into little fights here and there. On Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1945. They were celebrating Christmas at home, the father and mother, and 9 of their 10 children. The parents' names were George and Jenny. After Christmas dinner at around 10 o'clock at night, the parents went to sleep along with their 2 oldest children and their youngest, who was 2 years old. Marion, their oldest daughter, stayed with her 5 siblings, playing in the living room since it was Christmas Eve and they had received presents. They asked to keep playing and their mother let them stay there playing in the living room. A short time later, the house phone rang, so Jenny got up to answer the phone. She thought it was strange for the phone to ring at that hour, but it turned out to be a mistake when she answered the call. She noticed Marion, her oldest daughter, asleep on the living room couch and found it odd since all the lights were on. That's when she realized that the other 5 children had already gone up to the attic, which was where they slept, their bedroom. So she turned off all the lights and went back to sleep. A few minutes later, she woke up again to a strange noise on the roof, as if something had fallen and rolled across the tiles. But since that noise didn't happen again, it only happened once, she went back to sleep thinking it was nothing, or maybe it was a bird or something like that. So the couple slept for over an hour until they woke up and found the house already completely on fire. And from that moment on, everything turned into chaos for the family. Frightened, they ran out of the house, right? They managed to get out of the house. The couple with the youngest in their arms and the other 3 older children. But the 5 who were left and were in the attic couldn't get out because the house was already completely engulfed in flames. The parents even tried to go up the stairs to find their children, but they couldn't because there was too much smoke. That's when the father tried to get the cars, the 2 cars they had, and start them, but mysteriously, the cars wouldn't start, the cars weren't working. He then ran to get the ladder which belonged to the house and was always kept in the same place so he could climb up and help his children get out through the window. But the ladder had mysteriously disappeared. From there, he couldn't do anything else for his children. He then tried to call the neighbor and ask for help, but the house phone was also dead. It was completely silent.
He then started to get desperate because nothing was working out and he couldn't ask anyone for help. No one could find out what was happening in the house.
That's when they went through this desperation all night long. The firefighters and forensic experts were only able to arrive the next morning when there were no more flames. The fire couldn't spread because the house was far from everything else, but the house itself was already completely burned. It was just ashes. There was nothing else they could do, and that's when the desperation began. At first, the investigators considered that if the 5 children, their 5 kids who stayed in the house, had been incinerated, there wouldn't be any information left. That's because they tried to look for something in the house and they couldn't find absolutely anything. There were no traces of bones, no traces of anything, so that was the hypothesis they were holding, but it didn't hold up for very long. That's because no one smelled anything. There were no traces. There was absolutely nothing to prove that they had been killed by fire. The family also didn't believe the hypothesis that the children had died because of the fire. And what he thought was that the fire was just to distract while his children were being kidnapped. That's when they started coming up with theories and when they began not giving up on this case. They put up several posters around the city, and the case became quite well known in the United States. And that's when some hypotheses started to emerge. A young woman said that there in a cafe near the house, she had served the children who were with 2 men and 2 women, and that they were very nervous and didn't let the children say anything. They even tried to talk to the children, but the children weren't allowed to say anything. Other people also reported that they had seen these children somewhere else, but nothing that could actually prove that they were really those children. The authorities, for some reason still unexplained to this day, maintained that the 5 children had died in that accident.
And they didn't want to pursue this case any further. They told the parents that they had already done everything that needed to be done and didn't take the case any further.
The authorities considered this case closed and classified it as a short circuit. They said it was a short circuit in the house's electricity, which was very strange because all the wiring in the house was new. And Jenny, on the day of the fire, she managed to turn on all the lights so they could get out, so if it had been a short circuit, the lights wouldn't have been working. 15 years later, the mother of the family received a letter with no sender. There was no information at all. The letter only contained nonsensical sentences and a photo of a young man where on the back was the name Louis Solder, who was one of the children who had disappeared. They never found out where this letter came from. They couldn't find out. They couldn't get any information about who delivered it. Absolutely nothing. The family believed that their children had been kidnapped and taken to another country or something like that, and they also raised the possibility of revenge. This was because the father of the family was always getting into fights with people. He was a very difficult person to deal with. There was also the theory that the mastermind could have been a life insurance broker. That's because the family had received a visit from a life insurance broker in their home sometime before the accident. And the father of the family got into a fight with this broker, who left cursing the family and saying, "Your house will catch fire and your children will be inside it." That was the last thing the broker said before leaving, for a reason that remains unexplained to this day. It's very strange and bizarre. This insurance broker took part in the investigation of the house, and he was one of the people who helped close the case, as an electrical short circuit. The family never gave up on the case, so they were always looking for information. They always put up posters around the area because they were sure their children were alive, until years after the fire. A bus driver said that he was passing near the place and saw someone throwing fireballs onto the roof of the house, which could also explain the noise that Jane heard a few moments before the house caught fire. The father and mother have already passed away. The children are still alive, but they're quite old now, and to this day they have never been able to find out what really happened to the 5 siblings. The parents also never wanted to rebuild a house on that spot, so they set up a memorial for their children, which is still there to this day, and they went to live somewhere else. This case is really bizarre because there are a lot of clues. It's clear that it was indeed an act of revenge, but what I can't understand, and neither can many people who have studied this case, it's that there were no signs of bones, of bodies, nothing at all in that fire.
Even though several pieces of furniture remained intact, several things managed to stay whole, and yet there wouldn't be any body parts or anything like that.
The family also did tests for several years, taking bones, taking animal meat and throwing them in, setting them on fire to see what would happen. And they almost never managed to incinerate 100%, almost never did a natural fire manage to incinerate these things completely, which made them more and more hopeful. But this case was really never solved, and to this day we really don't know what happened to those children. But I ask you to leave in the comments what your theory is. What do you really think happened to those 5 siblings who disappeared? If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe to the channel and leave your like, because that's really important to help promote the channel, and so I can always bring more cases here for you. And thank you very much. Follow me on social media, which I'll leave here as well, and see you in the next video. I'm out.